Welcome to the show. Today I have two guests, and we're going to be talking about consent, not just verbal consent, but inner consent with Tressa Porter and Megan Walker. You're not going to want to miss the show. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome to the show, and today I have Megan Walker talking to us about the language of consent. Really important topic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Nice
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So when we're talking about consent, consent to a lot of things in life, but it's consenting to sex and it's consenting to just, anybody touching us. And consent is a language. We have to learn how to verbalize it and be able to mean what we say. What do we mean by consent?
So I think consent today is so difficult for people to understand. There are always mixed messages now that we're delivering. No means no, yes means yes. Which one do you use?
Yeah.
We also know that we live in this environment where women and girls are sexualized in every single mass media campaign, on television.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are really influenced by video games. And
right.
So, I find that girls really do get it. They understand. When I say no, I mean no. But oftentimes it's boys and men who feel this sense of entitlement to do whatever they like to girls and women, and they're not going to live by the term or the instruction no.
But I think a lot of the times we've said no, and maybe we have meant yes because we're shy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of men just keep that's an old thing that's been learned, and they continue on that mindset.
I do agree with that, and I think what gives me hope sometimes is that things that are learned can be unlearned. Mm-hmm. And we really need to focus on educating young kids at a very young age about what consent means. And from my experience, what I've seen more often is that girls, especially girls or young women in particular, will often say yes when actually they really mean no. But they say yes because they're fearful that if they say no, they'll be known as the prude or those sorts of things.
So why is she saying yes?
So there's pressure to say yes.
I
mean, this is the whole thing. There's this pressure. I mean,
where's
girls,
the pressure coming from?
It comes from society.
But why is society? What kind of elements, what images are out there that are saying, hey, say yes?
Well, I think, if you look at pornography as an example, pornography is all about taking away the rights of women to say yes or no. It's this fantasy. And so boys who are watching that at about age 11 starting are really learning sex education and consent through pornography, which is really inappropriate.
So if we've said yes once before because we wanted to, we genuinely consented, and then the next time we don't want to, how does that cause a problem?
So it shouldn't cause a problem, and it also shouldn't cause a problem if, I don't think so. To me, and what we say is, well, then men need to grow up.
They need to learn.
Because for me, it's about very clear lines. Either I'm saying yes, I consent, or no, I don't.
Right. And
you have to respect that as a man. Right. And so, even if I'm engaged in, in sex at the time, and up until 30 seconds before the end of the session that we're having, I say, no, stop. I expect him to stop.
Right.
So it's not about consenting at the beginning of sex or the relationship. It's about ongoing consent. Continue. And I believe that men have a responsibility to ensure that women are consenting.
So when we're married, I went through this when I was married at a young age, and I'm divorced now, but when I was married, I just thought I had to consent. Mm-hmm. I thought that was just my duty to, I'm the wife. I'm supposed to have sex with my husband even if I don't want to. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to say no. And so, are there a lot of women, when they get married, think that that's their responsibility?
Well, there are a lot of women that suffer horrendous abuse, whether it be sexual, emotional, physical, whatever it might be. And oftentimes women do feel coerced by their partners into having sex when they don't want to.
Yeah.
I think we've come a long way in understanding that. I mean, we now have rape laws for intimate partners, so
right.
It's illegal to rape your wife, whereas before they had a legal right to, have sex. But, it's not all doom and gloom. I look at young women today who really get it. They're very clear about what consent means, and they're talking to other young women, and they're talking to young men, and that's really who we have to deliver the message to.
Yeah. it has to spread out to the male race too.
Yeah.
When we can embrace our sexuality when we're dressed a certain way. If we want to feel sexy about ourselves, but we don't want to come across as throwing ourselves out to attract someone who is going to cause trouble to us. I mean, why does that in some, we're going to get back to the same old answer, men need to be educated, but when men look at some women that really are sexy and dressed, they sometimes think that they're displaying themselves and they're saying, yes, okay, you know, come to me, I'm attracting you because I want you to, I don't know, make a pass at me or something.
Do you know what I really love?
That's not permission. That's not consent either.
I love that women can dress however they like and still feel sexy. So it's about valuing yourself and how you feel yourself about who you are. And so we have women that come into our office that are dressed very conservatively, like I might be today,
right,
who are feeling so sexual, you know, sexy and empowered and really value who they are and what they have to contribute to society, who report that they've been sexually assaulted. So it's never really about the dress. I think sometimes men pick up on women who are extremely confident or know who they are and believe somehow they're sending a message to that man that they're giving permission. That's why it's not about how you dress, and it's not about the way you, your presentation or what you say or what you do. It's about clearly understanding the lines. And, you know, women for years have given those messages and also have delivered the line, no or yes. But now we need to make sure that men understand it.
So no is just the word within the language. I mean, do we have to elaborate from no? Like the man might say, well, what do you mean no? And then we have to elaborate and give them the whole, like the whole law book on the language of no?
No. So I think from my experiences, women who are starting relationships will often have the discussion. And that's what we always say. You need to communicate in advance. You know, start talking about it. But there are some times, particularly in hooking up relationships, where it's a one-night thing and they just sort of get together, and the woman may originally think I'm just interested in kissing or doing some sort of basic things, and then he won't stop when she says no, it's over, it's now over. And she has a right to say that, and his responsibility is to listen to that and say, I really respect that decision, and you know, and it may be down the road they continue to have a relationship or maybe not, but you know, we need to differentiate between consent, I think, in intimate relationships, long-term relationships, and consent in hookups.
I mean, it's difficult if you get into a situation, especially when you really don't know the person that well, and you really want to try to get intimate with the person, and everything starts off really gentle and everything, and then all of a sudden there's something not right. And you know, that negative element creeps in to own our power with consent and to be stuck in a situation where it's not respected. That is scary. We don't know. We never know. I mean,
well, when you think that most people who are sexually assaulted by someone they know, it's a really big message to us that we really don't know who we're with.
We don't. I mean, I was married to my husband for, you know, whatever, 4 years, and all the time I wanted to say no, and it's just like, whatever, just go with the motions. And that's what a lot of women do.
Absolutely.
They consent, and it's adding on more trauma, and it just takes longer to peel it all away once you've discovered that you can consent at any time, and it's just a whole process of getting rid of all of that.
It's very difficult, and it's very difficult particularly because if a woman is in a relationship or she's hooking up with a guy and she feels that she sort of wants to go along for a little bit, but then it's not, she doesn't want to proceed further, and she feels internally that if she says no at that point, she will be called, you know, a horrible person because she's led him on. Meanwhile, if she does proceed because she feels pressure that she has to proceed, she's the slut.
It's a vicious circle.
So women can't win, and that's, you know, women have always been active in standing up against sexual violence and domestic violence, and in trying to give the message to girls, and we need to shift that. Like, we need really good guys to come on board and say, this is what it means. This is consent. And
Well, it's a powerful thing, and men, I think, feel that they're going to lose their power. They've been in that power position for a long time, forever, since man and woman have been on the face of the earth. And I think that's the fear with them. But if they would just, they need to be educated to understand that it's a balance.
And they don't have, men are not entitled to women.
No!
You know, men are not entitled to assault and abuse women. And that's, to me, the biggest thing. It's, you know, men walk around, not all men, I believe the majority of men are really great and decent and respectful, but those men that believe they have a right to have sex with any woman on his terms, on their terms, are the problem, and that's what we need to address.
Yeah, well, it's great work that you do. I'm glad you're in the parade, leading the troops. I'm just jumping right in there too. I get what you're doing, and I believe it's an empowering place. We need to get it to a further dimension, and it's not there yet, but we'll get there.
But we're making progress.
Yeah, progress
and, you know,
is
I
happening.
always say women are so resilient and so strong and courageous, and we will get there one day.
Yeah.
Maybe not in my life, but one day we will get there.
But it's nice to be part of the whole transition, to at the end of your life, just to go, you know what, I was a part of it and made some change.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great having you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
that was fun.
Being
Awesome.
Here.
We'll be right back. Hi, welcome to the show, and today I have Tressa Porter, and just to kind of dig deeper into consent, we're going to go on the inside of just more of the nonverbal. Nice, welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Consent, I guess when I talk about consent, and you work a lot with inner consent and getting ourselves comfortable on the inside, so then we can be able to verbally say what we want.
Yes.
How does inner consent work?
Well, inner consent is really just consulting with ourselves. Is this what we want to do or not?
Right.
And that sounds very straightforward initially.
Yeah.
But there's so many ways we get confused and disconnected from what it is we want. Think about growing up so quickly. We are often guided towards things that don't feel good and told off about things that do feel good. So when we're older, we have a very difficult time navigating what feels good or not.
Right. Because sometimes when you feel like you want to consent on the inside, but you can't get the language out, do you kind of help develop that and get that pulled out so that we can learn how to, you know, enjoy what we want to consent to when it comes to sexually?
Yeah, I think, to me, what I help people with, or what I think we need, is to have more awareness of how we feel. Because when we're aware of how we feel, that provides the sort of momentum to say yes or to say no.
Right.
So, for example, a lot of us shy away from very negative feelings, things like anger, sadness, all of those things, and we tend to prefer these joyful, happy feelings, feeling good.
Yep.
However, there's so much information in the difficult feelings. And anger, for example, anger is a really, not anger in a destructive way, but anger is a very important tool that allows us to recognize and give us the permission to say no to something.
Okay.
So if we don't have a very intimate relationship with our own anger, it's very difficult then to feel safe in the world, to really explore our passion.
Right.
They're kind of flip sides of the same coin.
Yeah, exactly. When when we're working on these things inside, and we really, let's say we're wanting to get sexual with a partner, and we really feel there's some lagging or something in behind that's happened, and we're angry, and something pops up from the past. How can we learn to get rid of that anger, so that because we want to be sexual with that partner, we want to say yes, we want to explore, you know, intimacy and allow the relationship to grow sexually, but there's still that remembering that anger.
Yeah.
How do we get rid of it?
Well, I think anger usually sticks around until we are able to set boundaries that we need to set. That's how I make sense of it. And it may not be that we need to set them sexually, but in other areas of our life.
Right.
So we may not be able to access a no when we need it. Maybe we're taking on too much, or we've accommodating people too much. So then we're not accessing a no. We've got too many yeses happening. So then when we are in a sexual relationship and we're wanting to say yes, it becomes very difficult to.
So how do we establish boundaries? How do we know what our boundaries are? Do we have to explore and even push the boundaries and make no boundaries and then go through the experience and then realize, oh my God, that's a boundary, and that's my internal boundary?
I think you could do it that way. The way I support people to do it is to first become really curious about our no's. We tend to be a society, men too, who say yes to things that we don't want to do.
Men say yes all the time.
Yeah.
For sexual things. They just want to, they have no boundaries when it comes to exploring. They consent to everything.
Yes, however, in their lives, there's often a lot of no's that they need to speak. When I meet with couples who've been together for a long time, oftentimes there's a feeling that they've carried too much responsibility in certain areas, so then they're not speaking up and saying a no where they need to. So what happens for men often is, instead of speaking no's around taking up too much responsibility in certain areas, whether it be maintaining, sometimes it's financial things, all sorts of things like that. Instead of being able to say, you know what, I'm carrying too much in this, they won't speak up. And what they'll do is they'll count on sex to sort of be the medicine for this. I'll tolerate all this as long as we're having good sex.
Right.
As soon as the sex isn't good, then this starts to all show up. That's not very balanced then, do you know what I mean?
That's pretty tilted, yeah. It's very crooked.
And it puts a lot of pressure then on their sexual relationships. So then the men, become more demanding, and then that's never going to work for you.
We give in to the demands because we're not setting our boundaries as women.
Yes, and both lose. Whenever, because what happens in that dynamic is the woman becomes more somebody to be consumed.
And it boils down to conversation too. We're not talking about what our boundaries are and how we feel inside. That has to be the bridge.
Yes, absolutely.
To be able to cross all the time, so that everyone knows what they're doing.
That's right, and it starts with feeling permission to know that you can say no. And my feeling is, the more we can say no, the more we're clear about our yeses, and they become more exciting and more alive. And that's where there's so much room for sexuality. It's so much more satisfying to be with another who is equipped with a yes or a no, because then their yeses are really yes.
Right.
And that's alive and vibrant in the moment, as opposed to a yes for another agenda, whether it's societal pressure, marital pressure, relationship pressure. It's not as satisfying, so then everything has to get all more tintillating rather than actually really satisfying.
What about if we're consenting inside because we have that insecurity, and we're just consenting? Well, yeah, okay, I feel like it, but I don't feel like it, but I do, and we're tossing it back and forth because we're afraid if the no comes out after we've internalized that we do not want. We've accepted inside that we don't want to, but we can't say the no. So we're struggling with the insecurity of, well, what are they going to think?
That's right.
I've given myself before inside. I just think that's what I'm supposed to do. So what happens there?
And again, that's our work. That's our work to start to look at our insecurity. Usually comes from not feeling that we can set boundaries.
Right.
So it comes.
Interesting.
So what happens is, if we think of anger being central to it, down here is depression, and anxiety is kind of here, and up here is contentment, meaning not that everything's fancy and amazing, but that we're really feeling good about ourselves. If we don't have access to be able to say no, then it goes inside. It becomes internalized. It's like we took away our shell as a snail, and all of a sudden we're really vulnerable, and we start to doubt ourselves and doubt our boundaries. Whereas if we start to move through anger, say, no, this doesn't work for me, that's a no, then all of a sudden we feel safe again to start going, you know what, that really interests me.
So how do you help women set boundaries inside to get acquainted with that and identify?
So it starts with starting to actually consult with ourselves and be curious, rather than ashamed of different feelings.
Okay.
start to entertain them all, like, and get on a first name basis with them.
Okay.
Right? So
Yep.
it's kind of like, okay, I've noticed I'm really starting to feel unsure about myself in this situation. I wonder what's going on, rather than I shouldn't feel this way. We want to, it's information. It's like, oh, there is something going on in this dynamic that doesn't feel good. I do need to pay attention.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's becoming aware of the parts of us we do need to take care of so that we can venture out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes that turns into a place of just getting on your own path, and you're journeying away from a partner, perhaps sexually. Like, if you know, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're in a position where it was all, yeah, I feel good, I want to be with this person, I'm consent, I understand what my boundaries are inside, and then all of a sudden things shift, and you just don't know how to dialogue or communicate that internal shift of the boundary, what's going on inside. It's changed. Then what do you do?
Well, then I think the partner needs an update.
Okay.
And we grow, right?
Yep.
So then it's challenging, but it's necessary. And relationships that last a long time are relationships that shift and change and grow, right?
Yeah.
They talk about, you know, several marriages within a marriage, or relationships within a relationship. So as we grow, we invite the other to grow, or if they're not really up for how we're growing, then maybe it's an opportunity to look for a better match to where we are now.
Yeah, true. It's really hard, but then at the same time, sometimes we're not willing or prepared to look for another partner sexually, and we're still stuck in the rut.
So
you
tell
know?
me, what do you mean by the rut?
Well, I know there's a lot of people that I know that just, it's easier just to, okay, whatever, I think my boundaries will stay the same, or they might just shift over to where I want them sexually again. You know what I mean? It's just like a circle.
It stays really stagnant.
Yeah.
Well, that's when we've checked out. We're not paying attention.
Yeah.
We're not really present, because when
feelings are a lot, aren't they? I mean, this internal dialogue is really, it's hard to deal with, isn't it?
It is, and yet it's kind of like this. I love this quote, and this woman, Louise May Alcott, who's a writer, and she says, "I'm not afraid of the storms anymore because I know how to sail my ship."
Okay.
And it's like feelings then become the waves.
Yeah,
or if you're a surfer, you want the waves. So the feelings are so important, because if I can ride my anger, my passion is going to feel amazing.
If you don't like the way that your sailboat's going down into the ocean, then adjust your sail, kind of thing.
Learn that the waves are going to come, the feelings are going to come, and what often we tend to do, especially if we're stagnating, is we found a coping mechanism to keep them at distance.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of internal stuff that we can still talk about, and it was great having you on the show.
Thank you.
And I'll be in touch. We're going to stay on this topic and revolve and change, and we're going to be in touch with our internal dialogue with consent. That's awesome. Great. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching the show. It was really great having my two guests on. And if you have any questions on the topic of consent, you can email them directly at sexwithdrzen@gmail.com. We'll see you soon.